Of a few virtual house rules. So if everyone who's not speaking could please mute your microphone and turn off your camera, that would be wonderful. If you can, since you're joining us from many exciting places, organizations, if you can please rename yourself in Zoom. So you do that by going to the top. There are 3 dots at the top right corner of your screen. So if you can rename yourself with your organization, city name, that would be fantastic. And as this is a learning event, we're really here to learn. Please, there's no such thing as a bad question. Please do share the chat box. And don't be afraid to use emojis to encourage and share appreciation with today's speakers. And this meeting, so you know, will be recorded and it will be live streamed. So Mariko, I think you've popped in the live stream link for those that are not able to directly attend the Zoom event. We're overwhelmed by the enthusiasm and we're surprised to exceed the capacity limit. So hopefully the live stream works. That's on the APYN Facebook. So the aim of today's Making Cities Resilient meeting is, of course, to move from understanding to action. And I will be doing this as co-facilitator today with my colleague, Arnaud Roland, IFRC APRO Regional DRR Coordinator. Arnaud, can you say hello?
Thank you, Lucy, very quickly. I'm very happy to see you all from the region and even further. So my name is Arnaud Roland, I'm the Regional DRR Coordinator working for the IFRC Asia Pacific Regional Office.
Great to have you, Arnaud, as a Heatwave co-pilot today. And I am pleased to have Mariko Hirai, Regional Youth Delegate, joining us today, who is going to be supporting with the brave role of all of the tech support. Mariko, can you please say hello?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining.
And I think that, unfortunately, Mariko, our first tech challenge is that our keynote speaker, Ms. Juja Kim, is not able to join the meeting. Do you mind looking into the waiting room to see if she's there?
Okay.
All right. And we will also need to let our colleague Ramiz in as well if he's there. Thank you, dear audience, for your patience. If you could, it would be nice to hear where you're all from. If you can quickly, actually, I've prepared this. So I'm just, all right. We have a little Mentimeter as well. I hope that works. I'll just find the code.
Sorry,
yes.
Yeah, we'll join from here.
Hello, Juja. All right, so we will return to
Lucy. Oh my God,
right.
I don't know what happened because it's, suddenly it disconnected. And then I tried to rejoin. It said, sorry, the number already exceeded. So I was not allowed to attend it. Anyway, I'm so glad I'm so sorry.
That's all right. You know, adaptability, resilience, we're here to discuss that today. That aligns well with the theme of today's meeting. So, audience, we have a fantastic agenda and lineup of speakers, which we will get to shortly. But first, before we might lose them again, it's my absolute pleasure to welcome our keynote speakers. So, Ms. Juja Kim, Deputy Regional Director of IFRC Asia Pacific, as well as Mr. Imani Kumar, Deputy Secretary General of ICLEI Local Governments for Sustainability and Executive Director of ICLEI South Asia. So over to you, Juja. Are you still with us?
Thank you, Risi, for your nice introductions. Good morning and good afternoon. My name is Juja Kim, the Regional Deputy Director from IFRC based in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. It is my pleasure on behalf of IFRC Regional Office to welcome you this timely Asia Pacific Regional Heatwave virtual meeting. I'd like to begin by expressing my deep thanks to our co-chair of this event, MCR, the Making City Resilience 2030, and the ICLEI, the Local Governments for Sustainability, for your closer cooperations to organize this meaningful event today, in which we will hear and discuss the issue related to heat waves in Asia Pacific context. As we speak, it is noted that temperature in South Asia has been highest in 122 years. This is resulting in a critical cascaded effects in many areas, particularly across the system, from water and electricity shortage, infrastructures collapse, and the strain to agriculture and the food supply chains. These impacts are really threatening, and is really impacting on all the cross-cutting issues, affecting people's livelihood, of course, health and welfare, well-being, and pushing more people into the vulnerable situation, even result in the loss of life in some cases. As you know, the latest IPCC reports clearly describe how climate change has become a driving forces for heat waves and the chronic heat exposure. We already feel this is an Asia Pacific. As we bear witnesses, as we prepare for, anticipated and the response to the increase in frequency, duration, and intensity. According to the study, between 500 to 700 million people in the Asia Pacific, regardless the poor or the rich, it will be exposed to greater heat wave probabilities by 2050s. But unfortunately, the most vulnerable and prone to heat wave is urban area in our world. We may expect the future of more compounded disaster and crisis, which we are also see as we continue to respond to COVID-19 in many heat waves affected city and town, and across the urban, rural continuum. Nonetheless, luckily, we have some positive note. The impact of heat waves are predictable to a certain extent and preventable. And then with even low cost, our simple action can save lives during the episode of extreme heats. As part of our IFRC Global Strategy 2030, we are committed to better protecting 250 million people from extreme heat by 2025 in at least 150 cities and towns. But we know that we cannot achieve this alone. IFRC recognizes cities are on the front line of this public health emergency and are crucial in leading the fight to prevent unnecessarily deaths from heat. We depend on various stakeholders, in particular, roles and responsibility of national and the local governments are so critical. I'd like to share some of the key points in that sense. The government's role is that to set a clear, ambitious greenhouse gas commitments, climate mitigation, and the adaptation strategy to combat the further climate risk in our city and town. And 2, to foster close collaboration and coordination with the city departments and the external partner like a Red Cross and Red Crescent Society in every country, and the research institute and the actors from the public and the private sector to address heat risk. And the third point is to incorporate heat health consideration in our city and planning, the health and the social service, hydrometer forecasting, and the emergency management. Coherent and coordinated approach is very essential. Lastly, the two integrated heat risk reduction intervention into policies at all levels, ensuring the cross-cutting issues and most importantly, budgeting process to ensure sustainability. In return, we as a local actors, practitioners are here today as an auxiliary and a complementary to the government to support in preparing for and responding to heat waves in the town and city. You will hear many examples from participants who will highlight how Red Cross and Red Crescent Society and also local government, community, and the urban stakeholders come together to support city staff to understand heat risk, the vulnerability and specific growth, and also devise the heat action plan to protect those most vulnerable in high-risk communities for city-level resiliences. Here, I'd like to stress this cannot be achieved without our 9.4 million Red Cross and Red Crescent volunteers based in the community in the Asia Pacific, including youth. You know, in the today's, we have a special sections to hear from the youth. I think their role is so critical. I think it is really, you know, see how the intergenerations we have to speak, and we have to come up with the, you know, one collectively we are making efforts to reach our common objective. And these volunteers are what defines us, and then they are on the foundation in the community, and they help make the world as a safer place every single day. As we say, resilience is everyone's business. It's therefore bring me a great pleasure to welcome local government officials, Red Cross, Red Crescent staff and volunteers, and research and academia, and also making City Resilient 2030 partner to make a city heat resilient and move from understanding to action. Our aim of this meeting is to have all participants have empowered with a view, with a new learning, inspiration, and a simple and heat action, and also the range of resources to support you to make it your city heat resilience today. I think this is in conclusion, let's get to work. And I wish you a fruitful meeting. And also on behalf of IFRC again, I look forward to offering our continuous support and making our journey together. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Juja. Thank you for these opening remarks on behalf of IFRC. We very much look forward to getting to work as well today. And before doing so, I would love to hand the mic over to Mr. Imani Kumar, who's wearing two hats as discussed, to speak on behalf of the role of Making Cities Resilient 2030 in enabling us to get to work and move beyond understanding to action, as well as on behalf of ICLEI local governments for sustainability. Mr. Imani Kumar, are you still with us?
Yes, yes. Thanks, Lucy. Thanks, Lucy. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I think maybe some of them are joining from US. I saw some of the people. As Lucy said, my name is Imani Kumar. Yes, I'm wearing two hats as co-chair of Making Cities Resilient 2030. I just want to thank Ms. Juza Kim, Deputy Regional Director, IFRC Asia Pacific, and also inviting us for this very much important topic at this time. As Ms. Juza has said that we are facing severe heat waves. And April in South Asia, actually, I'm speaking from Delhi in India. Today, the temperature is 39 degrees as of now, and maximum it is showing 42, 43 today. And just 2 days back, we have faced 49.2. This is another record for almost 70, 80 years. That's what the newspaper says, which Delhi has not seen this type of temperatures on that. So it's very much the important topic today, what we are talking about. And on behalf of ICLEI, Local Governments for Sustainability, and also Making Cities Resilient 2030, to be partnered with IFRC and other departments of IFRC. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk on this particular very much important topic. I don't know how many of you know that India has more than 15 cities, almost I think 17, 18 cities out of the 50 most affected by the heat stress, as per the Columbia University study in 2021. Actually, Delhi is the second ranked city, and Dhaka is the first city topped in that list given by the Columbia University after their studies on that. Another study from the US says that if an average warming across the global cities will increase by 1.9 degrees Celsius with intermediate emissions, or 4.4 degrees centigrade with high emissions by end of this century. The risk of heat stroke goes up as temperatures touch 45 degrees centigrade. Exposure to dangerously high temperatures endangers urban health and development, driving reductions in labor productivity and economic output, and increases in the morbidity and mortality rates. Actually, recently, the International Labour Organization reports that by 2030, the equivalent of more than 2% of the total working hours worldwide is projected to be lost every year because it is too hot to work, or maybe all of us actually, when it was on 49 degrees, I almost felt like I'm dried off completely on that. So you all have likely heard that Asia Pacific cities are where the battle of climate change will be won or lost, because we have everything we need to do on that action. We also have power to foster inclusive, ambitious climate actions, mainstreaming low emission development strategies, and creating new climate mitigation and adaptation leaders. In Asia Pacific countries, local governments are setting low emission goals, forging net zero pathways, investing in blue, green, and nature-based solutions, as well as taking measures to strengthen the disaster risk management, from early warning to heat health planning as components of their climate, disaster risk reduction, and resilience policies and strategies and plans. ICLEI, Local Governments for Sustainability, is a city association all over the world, more than 2,500 cities as our members. And in the Asia Pacific region itself, we have nearly 300 cities as our members. And we are working very closely with around 200 odd cities on various initiatives that include sustainability, climate action plans, heat action plans. Recently, we were also talking about cooling action plans for the cities in the Asia Pacific region. And I'm happy that we partnered with IFRC and Taru and have developed heat resilience toolkit to support local governments in assessing their heat risk and identify solutions for conducting heat resilient action plans. Guidelines have been developed for communicating heat resilience with local governments and for early warning and early action for disaster management. Policy briefs and case studies have been prepared for cities from India, Nepal, and Bangladesh on heat resilient actions. We also have videos and other IEC materials which have been developed to support the cities to take actions on that. But taking action is not without challenges. Cities, especially secondary cities in Asia Pacific, are most rapidly urbanizing and often has of the globalization struggle to provide services like water, sanitation, energy, and adequate transport as they outplayed the growing urban development. In addition to all this, the COVID-19 pandemic for the last 2 years are really making cities vulnerable, and this is the time to action on that. To solve all these challenges, ICLEI, along with MCR 2030, you can get more information from my colleague, Ms. Sunisa, later part, taking up several initiatives. This is the core of Making Cities Resilient 2030 initiative, and we are all here to tap into the resources in the region through partnerships, technical support to build forward better, to realize a net positive future and forge healthy, safe, and thriving resilient communities. As Ms. Juza has mentioned, Red Cross Red Crescent depends on cities to lay the groundwork for heat resilience. We depend on Red Cross Red Crescent to connect the voices of those most vulnerable to our decision-making process, inform our citywide risk assessments with collection of on-ground data like vulnerability and capacity assessment of the most at-risk communities. Join us to build coalitions, heat action plans, and comprehensive early warning and early actions so no one is left behind on that. We also want to respond at a scale with your vast volunteer network, ma'am, of the boots on the ground and life-saving support on that. So we, as ICLEI Local Governments for Sustainability and also MCR 2030, looking forward to this particular today's session. And I just want to thank again all the speakers and all the participants, more than 250 participants I can see here on that, and looking forward to today's session on that. Thank you. Thanks again, and for giving me this opportunity. Back to Ms. Lucy.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much both for these keynote welcome remarks. They really set the stage, underscoring the relevance, timeliness, and urgency as to why we're here today, the challenges and opportunities, and how we should really work together as a collective of cities, national societies, and youth. So now, how do we get there? I'm actually going to be a bit rebellious and leave the agenda a mystery, as we are a little behind on time. So I think you've all received the agenda, and I would like to jump to our next speakers are first to set us up in terms of the understanding portion of the day. So the first step is to have a common understanding of context. Mr. Amani Kumar, he already introduced us, as well as Ms. Juja Kim, to a bit of the regional context. We're going to take a step further, for practitioner, a light on the current status of heat as a hazard in Asia Pacific, its drivers, socioeconomic impact, and key solutions. So it's my absolute pleasure to welcome Ms. Debrati Guasapir, Professor of Public Health at the Université Catholique de Leuven, apologies for my American accent, and Ms. Sarah Scales, PhD student of epidemiology at the University of Delaware, who will share recent findings and insights on the UNDRR report, Heatwaves, Addressing a Sweltering Risk in Asia Pacific. Professor Debbie, Sarah, are you with us and ready to take the floor? And
yes, thank you. Thank you, Lucy. Thank you. So I will start. I'll start off this session, the little presentation that we have. To very briefly introduce myself, and Sarah will do that when she begins, which she's my co-author on the report. Good morning to everybody. Most of you are probably in the Kuala Lumpur time zone. Some of you are from Europe and maybe even from the USA, like Sarah, and are in the middle of the night. But thank you very much for coming. From what I see, it's just it's a testimony really to the IFRC's pulling ability to get all these people to attend this particular meeting. I will simply say a few words on the report and a few more broad comments on where I think, as a scientist and a researcher to have done most of my work. Most of my career has been in working with data, looking at whether or not we can find the right data to convince policymakers with a number. Because at the end of the day, today, in the current climate, so good choice of word, current climate, data has become very central. Data has become very central, and everybody, including local governments, actually often want to know, and rightly so, what are the numbers? You know, what are we talking about? We don't anymore want to work with, you know, I have a feeling that lots of people are affected by the heat wave, or I have a feeling that I think that there are many, many people, you know, suffering from heat dehydration. This is not good enough anymore. This is really not good enough anymore. So the report that we will be presenting today, and Sarah will be doing most of the presenting, started nearly 2 years or even more, I think, ago. And of course, we were hit by COVID, you know, very early on in the process, and the whole thing got dragged on, and, you know, most of the interviews and things got delayed and so on and so forth. So it took a very long time, very long from our perspective, because we were expecting to have it done in 6 months. You know, so it didn't work that way. But I am very grateful that the report actually touched a few chords. I mean, the fact that the IFRC for their Asia Pacific meeting invited us to present it simply means that organizations who are really in the front line and who are really going to be responsible for change. Academics are not responsible for change. Scientists are not responsible for change. We can point to things and hope that somebody picks it up. When organizations like the Red Cross pick up on something, that's when change comes. So in that sense, they have a very high responsibility. We are also grateful to the UNDRR, who actually funded this study. But at the same time, I'm really pleased to say that they gave us total independence and autonomy. So we were able to make the kind of conclusions, draw the kind of recommendations that we actually thought was both pragmatic and scientifically valid. And they had no real, you know, except for contribution and discussion, which they did a fantastic job, they did not influence the results of the report. So I want to point out 2 or 3 things before I pass the floor on to Sarah. Cities are absolutely the hub of the concentration of the impact of heat waves, hub of the concentration. So in other words, this is an extremely good choice, because if we can reduce the impact of heat in cities or increase the resilience, we will have nearly half the problem solved. In rural areas, it's less of a problem. It's not that it's not a problem, but it's less of a problem. I'm not talking of agriculture. I am an epidemiologist. I'm really concerned about human health here. So, you know, survival on the quality of life and human health. So in the rural areas, human health is a bit more protected because there's more air, people are outdoors and so on and so forth, or can, you know, get shelter from shades. In urban areas, the urban poor are really, really badly put in a corner. So I think the focus is spot on, and the focus has to stay that way, because we are talking of millions of people, and there's a limit to what Red Cross can do. There's a limit to what Red Cross can do. So throwing open too wide a net is simply not a pragmatic solution. The heat islands, dense populations, and very often quite extreme poverty in some of the Asian megapolises, quite extreme poverty, are risk factors, are drivers that are very important, not to be underestimated. The other big driver of the impact of heat waves is concurrent pollution. Concurrent pollution makes the impact of heat much higher than it would have been if there was no pollution. So in other words, what I'm saying is that the heat, even if it does not reach technically heat wave levels, it has still a human impact, which is very high if the pollution is high. And that has to be kept in mind. One other point that I would like to make over here that I've noted down, that while scientific work is absolutely essential, and I come, my living, my reputation is all based on science and scientific research. Nonetheless, I think the impact of heat waves and the interventions to increase resilience is absolutely at the heart of the problem today. We have done a lot of scientific work. For me, you can quote me on this, but it's my personal feeling. Most of it has been in stratospheric levels. So you have stratospheric studies on heat and what's going to happen in 50 years and how it's going to increase in the world and so on and so forth. That does not actually help dealing with the problem at the community level. It does not help dealing with the problem at household levels. And I think it's high time, not now, already for a year or so, it's high time that this whole activity has to be brought to a higher resolution, brought down to the people, to the households, and the Red Cross is eminently well placed to be able to do that. I will just end and pass over to Sarah because she will go through the report in some detail. Our report tried to put its finger on, I think, 5 or 6, what we consider really independently the most pragmatic areas of priority based on scientific evidence. So we took all the science, we looked at the literature, we looked at all of that, and amongst all the wonderful things that everybody, the Santa Claus wish list, we have picked very few, very specific areas where we think action can be taken. And we hope that this will touch some chords among you, and we hope that this will help guide the community-based intervention that you guys are planning. So thank you for having invited us, and I'm glad to pass it over to Sarah, who will be able to give you much more concrete details about the report. Thank you. Sarah, over to you.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Debbie. I'm going to share my screen quickly. And let's put it in full screen. Can everyone see? Okay, yes. Perfect. Great. Perfect. So as Debbie said, we are talking about our report, Heatwaves, Addressing a Sweltering Risk in Asia Pacific. And I'm going to go through these slides pretty quickly. So if there are any questions at the end, please feel free to ask for elaboration there. So this is just a brief overview of the contents of our report, where we addressed the growing threat of extreme heat, overarching issues and priorities and patterns, individual and community risks, the social context of heat waves, and the challenges with data. So we'll skip what a heat wave is. I think everyone's pretty well versed in that. And so as epidemiologists, we're particularly interested in the impact of heat on human health. So for the sake of brevity, we won't go through all of this, but suffice it to say that the health impacts of heat are wide-ranging, oftentimes nonspecific, and can be either direct or indirect results of extreme heat events. So in our report, we use data from MDAT. These data suggest that compared to storms and floods, heat waves have increased over 230% between 2000 and 2019 in comparison to 1980 to 1999. So the red arrows indicate the areas that we're talking about today, our areas of focus. So Eastern Asia, Southern Asia, and Western Asia, and you see notable increases in the prior 2 decades. So the number of hot days is increasing globally, with locales around the equator facing the highest burden of these days. The IPCC's Working Group 2 report came out earlier this year, noted with high confidence that heat waves have intensified in cities, as we've noted throughout, and crippled key components of infrastructure. So reductions in air quality, challenges to food security, and changing patterns in vector-borne and infectious diseases are also predicted with medium to very high levels of confidence in the report. So indisputably, these things disproportionately impact marginalized and minority groups. With these considerations in mind, we highlighted 6 policy and research directions that, as Debbie noticed, seem particularly tangible and actionable and amenable to uptake. So again, if you have any questions, we'll go through these quickly, but we'd love to talk about them in more detail. So for our first direction, moving toward improved quality and quantity of data to support early action, prevention, preparedness, and response for both medium and short term. Research direction number 2 calls for targeted engagement of community and municipal entities with high-risk groups, such as pregnant and breastfeeding women, infants, and the elderly. Number 3, although climate smart designs have very much been in the conversation and are in public consciousness, sustainable development and adaptive measures for urban development and post-disaster reconstruction and recovery should be more fully realized. So for example, housing is perhaps the most cost-effective high impact option here, which moves us into this idea that we should investigate the financial feasibility and structural options for reducing heat retention in informal settlements and low-income housing. And these technologies should be further developed, as we noted. And then reviewing regulations for social and labor protections against heat in workers, against heat for workers, excuse me, and high exposure occupations is very important. So I think it's been noted multiple times already that labor will be influenced by the presence of extreme heat and the conditions in which individuals are asked to work. And then our final point is local and regional authorities should develop, implement, and iteratively evaluate heat action plans. I'm sure many of you on the call are from some of the cities that we have done kind of shout outs to, case studies of in our report, and would have far more to add to this, but this is our final direction there. And so in conclusion, the impacts of heat or of extreme heat are related to disenfranchisement and socio-economic vulnerabilities, and these are the most affected populations. So methodologies for heat health data are underdeveloped, and these areas should be addressed and further developed. And then development partners and local civil society can push for change. So these are big problems, but chipping away at it across all levels is a fantastic way to build resilience at the community level. And we're excited that you all are here today and are taking part in that. And again, any questions are welcome. And this is our contact information.
Wow, thank you so much, Debbie and Sarah, for this initial presentation. I'm just looking in the chat box, or feel free to raise your hand. Does anyone have any questions for our first speakers? I see a lot of clapping hands. Feel free to type your questions in the chat here. We do want to hear from you. This is a learning event. Someone did request, so to confirm, we will send all of the presentations your way, definitely. A lot to unpack there. Thank you again. I'll start with Professor Debbie to play devil's advocate. I do very much think that research in academia is responsible for change because we rely on you so greatly for evidence-based action. And that's what's really key and crucial about this Sweltering Risk report. We will also send the link. I do encourage everyone to read it because it's full of top tips. Once again, any questions from the audience or questions from co-facilitator colleagues? Arnaud?
I see a hand raised. Lucy?
Super.
Jumatil Fajar?
Please, over to you.
Please.
Yes, thank you. My name is Jumatil Fajar. I live in the Borneo Island, Indonesia. Last month, I tried to measure the temperature in Indonesia, and I found this, I don't know if the temp is good or not. It's become like almost 40 degree in Celsius. So I read the notification from the government. They said that it's not a phenomena. It's just the heat wave that caused by the sun that's near to the earth. Maybe it is better for us to have the data, like the professor said, that how it's impact the people in the Indonesia, because I have already lived in the Borneo since more than 20 years, and I found that the heat wave in this island is almost the same. And it is true, maybe it's because we live in the not urban area, maybe the effect for the health not really can be seen in the people, but I don't know what happened in the urban area. But the idea is the government is not make it become a problem for us. Like I just searching in the Google, it said that the media give the explanation regarding what happened regarding the weather in Indonesia, but we have not thought about the health effect of the heat wave in Indonesia. Maybe that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fajar. Sarah, Debbie, would you like to address any of the points raised for our colleague in Indonesia?
I can just pick up on this, and Sarah can jump in as well. Super. I didn't quite get your name. The gentleman from Borneo, I think you're in Kalimantan, right? Yes. Is that? Do I understand right, Lucy?
Yes.
He was from Borneo. Yeah.
Island.
Yeah.
Kalimantan.
Yeah. Okay. That itself, where you're located, is not so important. What you said has some very key issue that you're actually pointing at. That is the government established quote unquote definition of heat wave. You see, what is a heat wave? When is it a heat wave? And so on and so forth. And I think this is going to be I think it's going to create a lot of waves. I'm sorry to say that, and I bring it back a little bit to what we focus on. And I think this is what the Red Cross has to focus on also, is that any kind of rigid definition of a heat wave, so much temperature above this, or 3 days of hot weather water, will give us problems, because we can have situations where the impact of the heat on the people can be tremendous without it reaching that definitional threshold. And what you're talking about is really what I think should be much more discussed, is that should we really think about having action for heat wave? Not when the government says, yes, no, it is a heat wave because it's 3 days of so much heat and so on and so forth, but more based on how the population is reacting. So in other words, when you have an impact of heat, whether it's a heat wave level or not, but where you have increases, I'm just talking as an epidemiologist, you guys will have much better indicators. So if you see that there is an increase in the number of people coming to primary healthcare centers or to regional healthcare centers or to some sort of small healthcare, not big hospitals, small healthcare, there is an increase in the number of whatever kind of illness, that should be the indicator that there is a problem with the weather. And there can be from your health people, you can have, especially from the local health people, you can have very clear information or ideas about what would be the kinds of quote unquote diseases, morbidity, we would call it, diseases that you will likely to see when it's very hot. All kinds of dehydration, fever-related dehydration, so on and so forth. Once you see an increase, even a tiny increase in that, that should actually trigger the intervention, and not a kind of a meteorological This is my contribution to your question, Mr. Gentleman from Borneo. I still haven't got your name.
Thank you very much for your explanation.
And just to add on to Debbie's comment there, if you look in the literature, you have things that are very kind of cut and dry, that it's temperatures above the 95th percentile in a specific location. But particularly studies that are looking at very specific human health outcomes, so like birth weight in children whose mothers were exposed to extreme heat events in the first trimester and things like that, they put different consideration, they operationalize different parameters around what a heat wave is to consider human health impact. Direct exposure to sunlight at an individual level. Another big indicator is nighttime temperatures. So if it's cooling off at night, then your body is able to respond better to heat during the daytime. But if nighttime temperatures aren't dropping sufficiently, there's sustained impact there. And I think that's one of the challenges with data around heat waves, is that there is such variation in definitions and different, because our approach to so many of these things is so siloed. The meteorologists and the epidemiologists don't always play nicely with each other kind of in this definitional space. But yeah, it's a great question. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I would just want to add from the IFRC perspective, and a bit of what the question touched upon, as well as what our speakers just spoke a bit about. I mean, we have to really better understand how we can use data for preparedness. And that's across the disaster risk management continuum, right? Because that's what makes, heat is so difficult to identify, because it occurs both as an acute event, like a heat wave, with a certain cut dry definition, but also, especially in our region, it's occurring in the form of chronic exposure experienced, by seasonal or year-round extreme heat of tropical regions, for example, and understanding the impacts. And we heard a lot of different ways we can look at impacts especially on those most vulnerable, is critical. There's a very interesting question in the chat box, and I know we're short on time, but I would still like to ask it in any case. And you can let me know if you'd rather send an email reply, and we can share with the audience today as well. But Popo Wong asks, is there any useful indigenous, is there any useful indigenous local knowledge that can be applied to address heat waves in cities?
Sorry, let me just pick up on this. I will pick up on this without actually saying anything concrete. Frankly, there must be. We have not survived these millennia in hot countries. I mean, think of all the very, very hot countries we are talking about, where heat has always been an issue. We cannot have survived. The poor people in the cities cannot have survived without having some kind of, traditional methods of keeping cool. I would like to say that not all traditional methods are necessarily good. Not all traditional. There are some things that we do simply because our mothers, grandmothers, great-grandmothers have done it, which are not, which are not really beneficial. But in general, there is a lot of benefit. We have not seen, Sarah will correct me if I'm wrong, we have not seen any effort, really serious effort, to identify traditional methods of keeping cool. And I think that is really worth a good quality review or look, or even an anthropological type study to see what people do. And I think it's a very good question which requires attention.
Thank you so much. I think this is a great role for cities in terms of really looking at how that can be addressed, for example, in vernacular architecture, how we're really design our cities to keep cool, among many other things. So much to unpack. I would really love to thank you both once again. I've popped the link to the report in the chat. And for anyone that has any further questions, please feel free to write them, address to our speakers, And we'll see if we can answer them when we send a roundup of all of the materials sent to you today, as well as the presentations. And those answers to your questions are in any case, most likely in the Sweltering Risk report. Do check it out. All right, I will cross my fingers that our next speakers are here. Maybe Mariko can confirm.
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, super. Hello, Sunisa. Okay,
Hi.
so now we understand the risk and impact of heat waves, or rather, we're just starting to scratch the surface, I think, as a collective, as well as definitely the need for collective action. So this is really where the power of networked collaboration and regional initiatives come into focus. And making cities resilient, which you've heard a bit about today, and many cities are joining us from Making Cities Resilient as member cities, as well as entities. So Making Cities Resilient is one such mechanism to support, to scale up resilience, including heat resilience in cities and towns. So it's my pleasure to introduce you all to Ms. Sunisa Sudarak, Program Management Officer for UNDRR MCR 2030. And I will also chime in to guide you through existing regional support to ensure how cities, Red Cross, and youth can engage in making cities heat resilient as part of wider resilience journeys in cities and towns. And please do write your questions in the chat. Over to you, Ms. Sunisa.
Thank you, Lucy. So like everyone, my questions, what is the MCR or Making City Resilience is why like we are talking about like this many times. So as Professor Debbie said, like city is the one who is dealing with any like disaster or like especially for heat waves. So to having like a network of the cities will help the cities like to move forward, like to have a better planning, like for build the resilience for their own cities. So Making City Resilience 2030 is that this is the initiative. Next slide, please. That built upon the previous one we call as Making City Resilience campaign. And that one, like the campaign was focusing on raise awareness for the cities, like to understand on to raise awareness on the disaster risk reduction. But this time, like after like the campaigns was operate for 10 years, and then so this is moved to the next because like version it's called as a Making City Resilience initiative that is not only focusing on the raising awareness for the cities, but MCR or Making City Resilience, we support the city like to build like their resilience through the resilience roadmap. And in term here, like we call cities, but actually like we like it's not only limited to the cities, but it's also include municipalities, town, village, or district, or province, or even like the state. Next slide, please. And the journey of the MCR. Next slide, please. Yeah, and the journey of MCR cannot be done like solely by one agency. Well, the MCR is like try to like strengthening the cooperations to build the resilience, to have the resilience as a risk-proof cities. And IFRC is one of the 11 core partners under MCR. And also like IFRC APRO is also like the members of the, we call as the regional coordinating committees, which is the committee that we support the cities in each region. So, so that is not only like support on the strategy, but we like the agency like themselves can like also like directly support the cities. And MCR like this is an instrumental opportunities for the Red Cross national societies, which like includes like any branches like to connect with the city officials for like the local level coalitions to build coalition building and also like joint resilience network. Next slide, please. So what MCR like aims to bring, like definitely that we help the cities like to build their own resilience roadmap. Even we understand that cities are different, you have like different needs, you have different requirements. But yeah, finally, it's like there is the resilience roadmap that city like need to go through, and to build the resilient roadmap, like the coordination, the support, the connections, like not only like at the global level, but also regional level, like to connect city with other cities or connect city with other partner is necessary. So that MCR 2030 is like we have like a lot of governance structure like to support, to connect, to facilitate, to build the resilience. Like for example, like to support the peer-to-peer learning among cities, to support the knowledge exchange among cities as well. And one of the important tools that we like we would like to encourage the cities and also like partners like to use is the online dashboard. So why it's like interesting? Because this online dashboard, like we call it MCR dashboard, this is the place that cities that can learn or can connect with city directly, also like other partner directly as well. And cities can also like use this as registry or marketplace on to see like, well, which agency is working on any like specific issues. For example, if like a city want to connect with the partner that working on the heat wave, so yeah, you can also like just go to the dashboard and then like trying to find and connect with them directly. Next slide, please. And the MCR 2030, as I mentioned before, that MCR like we have like the different, city has a different requirements, and MCR like also we try to, the first thing is we try to support the city to understand the risks. We like just in the short term as we help city to know better, to understand that like to what is the disaster risk reduction and what is the resilience strategy. Like we try to raise awareness for the cities. Like mostly of these cities like might be at like the beginning level of like the DRR like knowledge. And also the second objective is try to support the city to do the enhanced DRR resilience strategic planning. For example, like we support the cities like to improve their risk analysis so that they can use the result of the analysis like to develop their own DRR and resilience strategy or like planning. And also the third one is actually like the most important thing on like to build the resilience to reduce the disaster risk reduction is the implementation step. So under this one, MCR support the cities like how to have a better implement. For example, like if any cities like want to focusing on the access to finance, so that definitely like you can reach out to us, and then we can also like have like have the cities to connect with any like partners that working on similar or on the same topics that city want to focus on. And also, like as Lucy mentioned before, the connection and collaboration is very important. So under MCRs, like we strengthening the vertical link between the local and national government, and also horizontal link. We try to encourage multi-stakeholder that working in the cities, like to work together to have a participation like in developing the DRR plan and also like implementing the DRR and resilience planning. And one of the most important thing is because city is the best teacher. So under MCR, we try to connect city with cities to learn and share with each other. Next slide, please. And so to move along the resilience journey that we divide into 3 different stages. That state A, that city to know better, state B to plan better, and state C at the implement better. So you see that there's critical milestone that cities like might need to pass through to the next step. But like please don't worry, like city will like not walk alone. So we as the MCR will like support and provide technical support and be like holding your hands together. So like if like for like any such support that cities request, so please like reach out to us, or if you want like to contact or connect with the cities like to learn more from them, so you can just connect with them like through our dashboard. And so then I will hand over back to Lucy on how like IFRC work connect with the MCR like at the national and local level.
Thanks so much, Sunisa. Yes, so on this point of cities not walking alone, IFRC, we're really here to support you. So for those of you who don't know us, we are the world's largest humanitarian network comprising 192 national Red Cross and Red Crescent societies working to save lives, build community resilience, strengthen localization, and promote dignity around the world. Next slide, please. Here's just a sneak peek of Asia Pacific and the support network we have for you in the region. So we've got 38 member National Red Cross and Red Crescent societies, 9.4 million volunteers, and 139,000 units. By unit, I mean, so you have a Red Cross headquarter, and then you've got the units, similar to local governments, you have branches, chapters, we call all of this the unit, the decentralized parts, let's say. So it's a huge web of support here to support you. Next slide, please. And I just want to take a moment to remind cities out there of our unique auxiliary role. So this is, as you know, local governments have a mandate, and we have a mandate to support you as auxiliaries to local and national government. So we really enjoy a unique special relationship, and we are here to really supplement or substitute for public humanitarian services. So we are here to really augment your existing plans, fill gaps, just strengthen resilience across the continuum in alignment, working through our fundamental principles, which you see here in the red box. Next slide. What does this really mean in terms of making cities resilient? You're going to hear from many practitioners today who are going to dig into each of these support services that we offer to stage A, B, and C cities. So from enhancing cities' understanding on heat risk reduction and resilience, you will hear more about how we can strengthen capacities and reach for your awareness campaigns, how we can assess risk at the community and citywide level, conduct orientation shops, build coalitions with you, participate in your subcommittees, really plan better together, improving risk assessments and diagnostics together with you, and implement better, whether that's conducting simulations, after action heat wave response, improving preparedness as we discussed today. So next slide, please. I'll give you a quick sneak peek of the dashboard. It's quite intuitive. Basically, this dashboard is available. All cities can register if you haven't registered already, and all national societies can also register as supporting entities. What this means is you can matchmake and you can really use the dashboard as a bit of a marketplace in order to scope different synergies for collective urban resilience support. I think I'll leave it at that, given that we have a lot more to cover. Happy to answer more questions on this, perhaps at the end of today's meeting. This is another sneak peek of the dashboard. And Sunisa has kindly dropped the link in the chat for anyone who's curious and hasn't yet joined. I really encourage you to do so. And then you will have more meeting experiences such as this Making Cities Resilient webinar today. In any case, Sunisa, many, many thanks for the presentation. Thank you for introducing us once again to this incredibly valuable initiative and the web of regional support available for all of you to access today. All right.
Thank you, Lucy. Thank you, Sunisa. Thank you very much for this example. I don't see any question in the chat, and for the sake of time, I won't insist. Sorry for that, but I think we should move directly to a tangible example that we have. We talked about heat waves. We talked about the municipalities on the side. We talked about the Red Cross Red Crescent on another side. And we now have an example from Nepal, actually from the city, from Nepal, Gunj, that is going to be introduced to us by Mr. Dolak Danji, which is the bank district branch from the bank district branch, sorry, of the Nepal Red Cross Society. Are you here, Mr. Dolak Danji? You
Yes.
here? I can see you.
Yeah. I am hearing. Thank you very much. You and Lucy. Also, I also thanks to Juja Kim, which to whom I seen after long gap that we worked together when she was in Kathmandu. We worked together. Nepal's biggest flood in 2017 together with Nepal Red Cross Society. Anyway, okay, I want to share our few experience and what we how do we initiating heatwave action in Nepal. Just I want to share my screen here. Okay, is this?
We can see your screen.
Yeah, is this visible? Yeah.
It is not in presentation mode, but we can see your screen.
Yeah.
It is now in presentation mode. Perfect.
Okay, sir. Just identification of heat threshold and heat hotspot in Nepalganj city and policy brief reducing heat impact in Nepal, especially in Nepalganj city. It's my short presentation. I would like to go through my presentation. Actually, the Nepalganj city, metropolitan city. This is metropolitan city. And how we collaborate, how we started our collaboration with the local government. This is our first, because of this was our first step. Last year we started this intervention. Actually, Nepalganj sub-metropolitan city is covered 516 kilometers. Like this is the area, coverage area, located in Banke district on the Tarai region. This is in Lumbini province. If you know that now the province is named by the assembly, parliamentary assembly. This is Lumbini province, which is situated in northern side of the India. This is in border border line of two countries in between India and Nepal. The Nepalganj metropolitan city has 23 wards. It divided in 23 parts geographically. We have started our joint collaboration in heatwave action by last year. COVID-19 crisis. Yes, but COVID-19 crisis slowed our implementation because of when we started our dialogue with our partnership with the Nepalganj sub-metropolitan city. Right, the same time, COVID-19 crisis is raised in the city, and government started to impose the lockdown, and it slowed our implementation. Even during COVID-19 situation, we came up with a common understanding with the government that heatwave impact is high in Nepalganj city, and actions are required. We agreed about this issue is Nepal. As well, I also want to add here, Nepalganj city, especially Banke district, known as the hottest city in the country in Nepal. This is also the highlighted point. Yeah, our study approach, we have had an study last year in collaboration, technical support with the Red Cross Climate Center. Actually, these are the tools we used. Actually, just I brief this differently, like Banke district branch had never addressed heat as a hazard. So this project was new for everyone, in Nepalganj also, in Nepal also, I think this was a new initiation. The first aspect of the Heatwave programming is to have an understanding of risk. This starts with the local context, secondary information such as demography and socio-economic data. And if we see our tools we have used for the steps are in different color. So for local context, we relied on literature reports and secondary data in our research report. Then we had to understood that is driving heat waves and their impact. Daily meteorological data on climate website variables, temperature and humidity over last 26 years in Nepal city have been analyzed and for its trend analysis. Likewise, satellite image and remote sensing data have been investigated using GIS tools for extreme event. The research on historical evidence of heat wave impact is study area has been done through literature review and newspaper analysis also. In creating the heat index, we needed to look at the climatology and hydrology of heat waves, but also who is most exposed and what groups are most at risk. Some of the critical steps of these initiatives are heat index analysis and exposure vulnerability index and identification of vulnerable group also mentioned in our research report study approach. Similarly, tools such as a key personal interview have been adopted to complement secondary data and other satellite data analysis findings were used. Additionally, ground visits of observation and photographs have been taken in the real ground in the field. And finally, heat threshold and hotspots were identified by investigating the above mentioned process and tools which provide information on which when we and where to act in relation to the external heat extreme heat days. These tools and steps we followed during our study approaches in the Nepalganj city. And this is also the climatology and hydrology of Nepalganj. Actually, Nepalganj has a subtropical climate. April through June are the hottest months of the city, in the city of the annual basis, with a maximum temperature exceeding 40 degrees Celsius. But day before yesterday, the city Nepalganj temperature was increased by 42 degrees Celsius, as I heard by the Metropolitan City College. Yes, the highest temperature ever recorded in Nepalganj 45 degrees Celsius in 95 and 2012. This is DHM data. DHM, it means Department of Hydrology and Meteorology in 2020 studies. As observed from historical weather data, humidity during hot days reaches around 80%. The hottest data during the monsoon period has been recorded in Nepalganj from June to September. This is actually the monsoon period ranked in Bankhe district and the Nepalganj city. Heat vulnerability and hotspot in Nepalganj. This is actually the hottest spots shown in the map here. This is heat waves are dangerous because of their impact. So this is the result of our steps, which basically identified the hotspots corresponding to heat and heat risk exposure and vulnerability. For example, ward number 22 here is highlighted. This ward number is highly vulnerable, followed by the ward number 19, 14, 21, and 13. This is where people tend to be the poorest, living in substandard housing, their housing, or have work that expose them more to the negative impact of heat. So this heatwave impact map also tell us that we need to link preparedness measures for an imminent heatwave or actions taken during a heat wave to long-term and policy level intervention to reduce urban heat risk are also critical, especially in ward number 22, 19, and 14, because of the heat wave exposure in this ward is high primarily due to unplanned rapid and high density urban growth, low vegetation and water bodies in this area, actually presence of industrial belt also in this area, and the busy highway. The main road is situated in this area, and blacked up the road surface. Intense vehicle movement is also the I think these are the most indicators. These wards are seems more vulnerable, and individual, the target group, individual with low economic socio-economic status are vulnerable. People living in tin means CGI seat roofed houses also are vulnerable group. Auto and rickshaw drivers, pullers are vulnerable groups. Construction workers, outside construction workers, and street workers, hackers, and vendors are also the vulnerable group which we found during our research or in Nepalganj city. This is the high and low indicators, legends here mentioned in the ward level ranking. Heat threshold in Nepalganj city, actually.
Mr. Dolakdanji, just wait 2 minutes if possible for the sake of time. Don't want to rush you, sorry.
Sorry.
That's fine. Please.
Yeah, just heat threshold in Nepal. The extreme event threshold is 38 degrees Celsius is the maximum daily temperature, becoming an extreme event in Nepalganj sub-metropolitan city, actually. And the heat index 47 is proposed as the impact threshold in Nepalganj in this time. I have not much more. Now few slides I have only. This is actually we analyze the key roles and stakeholder. We identified stakeholder also for future. For the role, this is the role and potential organizations are here mentioned. Developing a heat action plan, district disaster management committee we have throughout the country. This is the it has the key role to develop a strategic plan and its execution. So district disaster management committee, Nepalganj sub-metropolitan city, metropolitan city is the key our implementing partner, our government lead partner. Nepal Red Cross Society, we district branch for the implementing partner, and we have one hub hospital here in this province. Very General Hospital is also the potential partner, and the Nepalganj Chamber of Commerce, which is the group of businessmen, it is also our potential partner. For the developing and issuing heat early warnings for DHM, Department of Hydrology and Meteorology, and the Department of Health Service Nepal. These are the federal level institution. Those are most important partner. And lending emergency response, that district disaster management committee, Nepal police, disaster management department, our NRCS national headquarters, and we district branch, and Nepalganj urban sub-metropolitan city also, and a few other partners, potential partner we can identify in long term. Liaison with the media. This is most important. Nepalganj sub-metropolitan city. I just missed here one thing is district emergency operation center also, which is coordinating unit from the government side in emergency situation. We have to mention here also DEOC. Then liaison with city residents, like Nepal municipality also, Red Cross branch office and regional hospital, and we can include here all ward committee, which is the local level service delivery unit from the government side in yet all ward 23 ward. We can also add here them. And the next step we have that what we have to do for the further action, that initiating stakeholder engagement on heatwave preparedness response using existing materials and through consultation with relevant stakeholders such as GHM, city officials, health officials, and the district disaster management committee mentioned here, and developing city heatwave plan, action plan. We think that this is the most important, and relevant stakeholder focusing on extending support for heatwave management planning to priority wards like 22, 19, 14. I already mentioned in my previous slide, monitoring the process and its effectiveness and urban updating the plan accordingly. A community level in-depth impacts analysis and capacity assessment we have to do, rolling out awareness and capacity building programs. This is mentioned from May to June is effective. In-depth analysis and validation of the heatwave impact analysis by investigating public health data, and formulation of trigger model and simulation, conduct simulation in the city, particularly in the vulnerable wards, and the development of an early warning, early action standard SOP. This is our next step, and we have also tomorrow we have a meeting with potential partner in national level and federation. Also, we are planning to meet once our activity start to implement in the city also. And policy briefing, that we reducing heat impact in Nepal city. We approach that short-term strategy and long-term strategy actually. For the short-term strategy, it that heatwave awareness, immediately we have to implement this early warning, early action for heat action also. For the long-term strategy, greenery space, increase greenery space, increasing effectivity of surface, open space, urban planning for cool city. But we also think that in the strategic location where the people gathered for for a bit long term, like half hour and 2-3 hour, like in bus stop, like in Nepal India border entry point, and other strategical junctions. If there will be some cooling centers, that will be very beneficial for the street vendors, like workers, such people. That we also thinking about that. Passive cooling centers and long-term heat education, like that. If we come up in the common understanding, like such heatwave actions or its awareness campaigns can be delivered through the school level, that will be very effective. We are also discussing with the municipal authority about this issue also. Actually, these are our some like this policy level impact. We can like it can integrated into policy that plan on both short term and long term. That means days to months in short term, and long term for 5 years plus. We can also develop the plans and strategy also, like identifying the timeline also. These are some
Thank you very much.
Yes. Yes, this is my presentation. It's complete.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dalakdanji. Sorry for rushing you a little bit. Thank you for this initiative from Nepal Gunj, really covering from the data to the coordination to the strategy highlighting the need for a coalition. It was very, very interesting. We will have questions. I've seen some interesting questions in the chat. Lucy is addressing some of those, but we're going to have our second speaker to show us the example of Dhaka, Bangladesh. And I would like to call Mr. Shahjahan Sajju from the Bangladesh Red Crescent, who is going to introduce the example of Dhaka city. Are you here, Sajju?
Yes, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, Lucy, can you share the presentation from your computer?
I can, unless Mariko, if you can also share, that would be nice. If not, I will share. One moment. I was just trying to answer in the chat. I'll use this opportunity while I'm juggling a little to say that for those of you that could not access the heat threshold and hotspot identification report, that's in the general CDK and the first link that I sent. So that will be on that page. And
yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mariko.
So good morning and good afternoon to all. This is Mohammad Shahjahan. I'm working with Bangladesh Red Crescent Society. Now I'm looking over forecast-based actions and anticipatory action. And also in Bangladesh, we have a technical working group and a task force within the government. So on behalf of Bangladesh Red Crescent Society, I'm leading that technical working group and also coordinating with the government and for activating and functioning the FDF task force within the government system. I think most of you know in Bangladesh, we started anticipatory action in 2015 with the hazard cyclone and flood. Now in Bangladesh, so many UN organizations and other INGO and NGO are involved for implementing anticipatory actions. And from our side, we are also trying to develop a new early action protocol on Heatwave, which is now in the draft format. Hopefully within short, we will complete for finalize it. So considering the Heatwave, we did a feasibility study within Dhaka city. I think you know that Dhaka is very dense populated county within the world, and also there are so many high-rise buildings within Dhaka city. So generally temperature is very higher compared to the other area within Dhaka city. So we completed this feasibility study in 2020, and last year we have organized a national workshop for sharing that feasibility study, and I'll share the details report link within the chat. Based on the feasibility study, last year we did a simulation on Heatwave in Bangladesh. So here are some why now Heatwave is also is alarming hazard in Bangladesh. Now government also is concerning about this Heatwave. So this is the some newspaper headlines from the last year. This year also so many national electronic and print media highlighted about the impact of Heatwave in Bangladesh. So like last year, over 300,000 farmers lose their rice production due to the shock of Heatwave, and also day laborer like a rickshaw puller dies due to the heat stroke, and there are recorded temperature within Bangladesh last 7 years. Then another newspaper highlighted that life made very miserable as Heatwave shifts in Rajshahi city. So Rajshahi is another city where also Heatwave is very high compared to the other cities. And heat stress hits country around 30 districts. So we have around total 64 districts. Out of 64 districts, it's reported that within 30 districts, heat wave is historics, and people also lose their cultivation product, and also drought happening in the northern area of Bangladesh. Please go next slide. So through the simulation last year, what we did, actually, since it was a simulation, and we did this simulation within the COVID pandemic situation, that's why we did little, we minimized our simulation. So we did awareness campaign and also cash intervention. And for the awareness campaign, please go next slide. For the awareness campaign, we distributed different awareness messages of what types of action people should take for reducing the impact of heat wave, and also we disseminated awareness messages through mic, and also we disseminated that awareness message by using local media. And then we also distributed different kinds of leaflet within the street people, community people, and we have distributed cash within 197 households. Each household received 4,500 taka. After that, then we did a forced distribution monitoring survey. So from our forced distribution monitoring survey, it was found that people use that money for treatment who affected or who impacted different kinds of diseases due to the heat wave. And also based on our feasibility study, we found that during the heat wave season, the day laborer or street fuller or street shopkeeper, they lost their livelihood incomes on an average 7 to 10 days. So we found that people using that money for their livelihood purpose as well as for their treatment purpose, and also for buying different kinds of fresh drinking water. Please go next slide. Yeah, in Bangladesh, actually, for Dhaka city, our heat index is 38 degrees Celsius, and we found that people interest is very much higher on heat wave learning, and they are also very concerned about the heat wave impact, and they are also very concerned about the negative impact of heat wave. The simulation on yeah, and after this, so many national and international newspaper highlighted about our simulation and also our feasibility study. Please go next slide. Yeah. Lastly, I want to say that we are very closely working with the Bangladesh Meteorological Department and Dhaka South City Corporation and Dhaka North South City Corporation, and also health institution who are providing us support for identifying the impact of heat wave in the health sector. That's why we are working with DZ Health and also ICDDRB. And we have a formal MOU with Bangladesh Meteorological Department for providing us support. So they are providing us support for analysis of the heat wave data, and also for identifying the heat wave heat island, and also for finalizing the threshold discussion with the community people. Now we are thinking how we can expand this heat wave activities. So we are now considering about Russia and other cities. And this year we have also planned for organizing some more activities based on the last year heat wave simulation. And already I mentioned that we are in the final stage for developing our Heatwave early action protocol. So that's from my side. So if anybody have any questions, I'm ready to give the answer.
Thank you, Saju. Thank you very much for this example from Dhaka, this collaboration between the Bangladesh Red Crescent, Bangladesh Meteorological Department, and the Red Cross Climate Center. I think we have question. I just want to say we have question in the Facebook Live. We take a look also at those questions. We might not have the time to address them all, but we will come back to you with the material and with the report from that webinar, where we're going to address as many questions as possible. Lucy, did you have any question you wanted to highlight from the chat, maybe?
Why, yes, I would be delighted to highlight a question from the chat. Let me find it. So one question is from Ms. Sorry, your name is a bit cut off in the photo. So Ms. or Mr. Lakshani, how government policies can involve with reducing the impacts of heat waves for a resilient city?
Which is the last question, big question.
A big question, but one that I believe our colleagues with Bangladesh Red Crescent can answer. Maybe you can speak a bit to the city collaboration, Saju.
Yeah, thank you for raising good questions. Actually, I mentioned that we are very closely working with the city corporation, because city corporation is the main stakeholders and they have the main mandate for working in the city, not only heat wave, so they are dealing with all kinds of facilities within the city area. That's why we are very closely working with city corporation. And also I mentioned that since the Metro department, they are the main service holder for providing forecast on heat waves. So we have very good relation, and we have a formal MOU with the meteorological department. Beside that, since we are the auxiliary of Bangladesh Red Crescent or government of Bangladesh, and Ministry of Disaster Management and Relief and Health Ministry, this is the two main focus ministry, and they are our line ministry. So Ministry of Disaster Management and Relief, they are dealing with different kinds of hazards and also different kinds of anticipatory reaction, response of shock responsive social protection, and Ministry of Disaster Management, Ministry of Health. So they are dealing with all kinds of health issues. So these two ministries, the main line ministry for us, and we are collaborating with this ministry's meteorological department, the city corporation, and under the city corporation, they have a specific sections, specific director who is dealing with the health sections. So we have very good relation. We have agreement with city corporation for dealing with this heat wave issues. And that's why last year government also organized a big workshop in Bangladesh, and this year they are also planning how they can bring this heat wave issue in their policy document. So hopefully within coming time, the government also incorporate, and government also will take initiative for reducing the impact of heat wave in Bangladesh. Over.
Thank you very much, Saju, for this response. A lot of very interesting questions. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of time to address them all. We're already super late, actually. So I want to thank Mr. Dolakdanji. Saju, thank you very much for those examples from Nepal and Bangladesh. I think we can take maybe like a 3 minute break, which is to say we have a break and just maybe to shake your, maybe to look at something else than a screen for 3 minutes. You can start the counter, Mariko, so we don't waste time. Grab a glass of water and we'll take action in the second part of this webinar. We'll see how we can right away take action. Thank you very much.
Thank you. See you soon.
and we are not responsible for the advertising on the timer.
Wow, that was a quick 3 minutes, but nevertheless, I hope everyone is feeling refreshed and ready to go for part 2 of the day. So this is where we now really commence the getting to work portion of the day with core stakeholders in urban resilience. And I am extremely pleased to introduce this core stakeholder in particular, youth. So it's my pleasure to welcome Ms. Michelle Chu, IFRC Youth Commission Asia Pacific representative, who will share how to activate climate youth-led action in your cities and towns. Michelle, are you with us?
Yes, I am here.
Good morning to you. So Michelle, maybe, I don't know if we can see you yet. Ah, here you are, wonderful. Michelle, why is youth important to heat action? How can youth support in cities and towns? Over to you.
Thanks, Lucy. Could I please have my slides? Sure. Thanks, Mariko. Good morning, everyone. I'm from pretty sunny Geneva. So I hope to keep my presentation short and sweet because I know that we're running a bit late on time, but still, hopefully everyone will be interested to listen as to how we could engage young leaders in the course of climate action. I'm pretty sure that everyone knows that climate action or heat action in this case is something that's very important to our generation because we recognize that there are a lot that is happening around us and the climate crisis is seen as an issue that really affects us young people directly or indirectly. And we know that it will also affect our future generations. So I'm here today to talk to you about 3 main points. Firstly, why is young people important to heat action and what young people can offer? Secondly, how can young people support national societies and cities? And thirdly, how can cities and national societies best activate youth engagement? Next slide, please. So first of all, what can youth offer? Next slide. So as young people, we are very diverse group of people, yeah, it's very important to recognize that we're not a homogeneous group. Every one of us are different. We have different needs. But at the same time, we also bring a variety of knowledge, skills, and experiences to the table. So there are 4 key distinctions as to what the young people of our generation bring to the table. First one being social movements through new forms of advocacy. And as our generation really rallies around a cause, such as the climate movement, and as we can see across the world, things such as the Fridays for Future movement, which actually managed to mobilize young climate activists worldwide without really being part of these traditional organizations like the Red Cross Red Crescent. And that is why young people are particularly attracted to causes that they are passionate about. And if we can sort of tap into that, their potential or our potential, we would then be able to engage with them and have them supporting this cause as well. Secondly, we have access to unique tools, innovation, and technology. Being one of the most digital savvy generation currently in our world, everything is sort of at the tip of our fingers. Young people are able to search for information and devise new creative and innovative ideas to solve some of the world current problems. That is why it's very important to utilize some of these unique skills that young people could bring to the table to ensure that our cause in championing for climate or heat action is being made easier. Thirdly, young people are very energetic, passionate, and have solutions to bring to the table. I believe that if you ever talk to a young person out there within our movement or beyond our movement, you'll be able to experience the kind of energy that they actually, I would say, convey through either their speech or their actions. And that is why I'm sorry. Yeah, thank you. And that is why if we are able to then tap into their energy and have them to drive things forward, we will be able to also move things forward in terms of carrying out action. And the fourth one, which is also very important, is that young people have communities all around the world. As youth, we are very, very aware that we are not just alone as individuals. We have a community of young people all over the world, and even communities that are supporting young people like all of you. And that is why it's important to understand the vulnerabilities and needs of young people as well, so that we can best support young people to bring action to the table. So I've told you about why it's important for young people in carrying out climate action or heat action. But next slide, please. I'm going to tell you about why how can we actually support. So next slide. In the Red Cross Red Crescent strategy on youth-led climate action that was launched last year, April, during Earth Day. Next slide, please. Yeah, there is 3 dimensions of change that are spelled out. First one being awareness, second one being action, and the third one being advocacy. Next slide, please. So on the first dimension, awareness, we recognize that it's very important to first educate ourselves as well as educate the people around us to engage in all forms of climate action, or in this case also heat action, because if we understand the issue or the matter or the topic at hand, we would then be able to figure out what the possible roots or causes of the problem to devise solutions to it. Currently, a lot of young people are also advocating within their country, cities, national societies to include the climate curriculum as part of education that is delivered to young people, so that they are sort of aware of this issue since a tender age. Next slide, please. Yep. Action, of course, it's all about action nowadays, because nothing would happen if we don't have people out there taking action, right? We need to recognize that young people have been at the forefront of climate action for a very long time. And of course, here we are sort of emphasizing taking practical climate action, and it doesn't need to be a lot like big things, right? We don't really have to plant 1,000 trees in one day. But see, as long as one person plants a tree, say in a month, and if you have 100 youth leaders, then you already have a lot of trees that's being planted. in 1 month, at least 100 trees, right? And this is what young people are emphasizing on, and also what attracts young people the most in really carrying out concrete, tangible actions in their local community. And by doing so, we also inspire other young people to take these sorts of practical climate action in our communities. And of course, supporting cities and national societies in terms of climate change adaptation activities, because we need to recognize the fact that, for example, heat waves or the climate are issues that are very, very prominent, and to ensure that we take proactive action to either mitigate or adapt to the impacts of climate change. Next slide, please. The third one is, of course, advocacy. Young people need to have a meaningful seat at the table. Oftentimes, we do provide a seat for young people at the table, but we might not be engaging, or it might be more of a form of like a tokenization for young people to be there, but they are not being able to contribute meaningfully. That's why we need to have young people at the forefront, because they are the local actors, so they would be able to understand what's happening on the ground as well, to influence policy and decision making. Therefore, it's important for national societies and cities to ensure that we include young people when it comes to policies and decision making, as well as to invest in youth-led climate or heat action to ensure that we would actually be addressing this issue concretely. Next slide, please. So my last part, how can cities and national societies best activate youth engagement? So there are a few opportunities here. Next slide. As we can see, in the Asia Pacific region specifically, Red Cross or Red Crescent clubs are very, very present in schools. And of course, cities governments are also in charge of the education of the young people in their cities. And therefore, this is where cities and organizations can come together to then reach out to young people. We need to move away from some of the more traditional traditional perceptions of what people think about the Red Cross or what the Red Cross does in schools. Yes, first aid is still very important, and I'm pretty sure you'll also hear about it later. One of the speakers, but we need to recognize that there's a lot more issues that Red Cross, Red Crescent, young volunteers, and also youth in general can address, and ensure that they are provided with the avenue to address these issues. So by reaching out to them in schools, like formal education setting, is a touch point that could possibly be done. Second, community. Young people love being part of a movement, as I've just explained to you, and a meaningful movement. Therefore, it's important, say, for cities to actually rally around the local community so that you can take action to address heat waves or issues with heat. And that is why if you're able to create a close-knitted community that are firstly aware about the impacts of heat waves and climate change, and then to sort of organize certain activities that showcase that as a city or as a local community, they are able to make change. It's also a potential way of engaging with young people and sort of having them back this actions. Next one is for local government decision-making processes to be inclusive of young people. As I've mentioned earlier, we need to involve young people in the decision-making process. We need not only to provide the space, but also to actively listen to their voices and to remember to adopt their suggestions. Because only by having sort of like a plethora of suggestions and diverse viewpoints will then be able to devise the best, or I would say, not the perfect, but definitely a decision that would be inclusive and would take into account the most experiences. And last but not least, to build social media presence. Young people are all over social media and the internet. And as young people as well, we love flexibility. We don't really like to be tied down with organizations. And therefore, it's important for both cities and, say, Red Cross, Red Crescent, national societies to offer some form of digital volunteering opportunities and to build their social media presence in the case of like heat action as well as climate action, to ensure that, you know, the young people out there are aware that the cities and the national societies are actually putting focus on this issue. So yes, provide keep your options open, because young people are all over the place. And to actually be able to engage with them, we cannot stick to our traditional methods of just, recruiting members as volunteers, but we really need to ensure that there are a variety of options for young people to be able to work with us in the course of climate action. So that's basically all for my presentation. I hope that didn't bore you. I'm happy to take questions maybe in the chat, because I'm aware that time is running late. But for now, back to you, Lucy.
Thank you so much, Michelle. I don't see any specific questions in the chat, but a lot of kudos. Michelle, you have, you're truly a role model, and this presentation was very inspiring. I would like to actually ask our participants, you're getting hearts, applause all over the place. To the participants out there, do we have other Red Cross Youth participants joining us today? If so, can you raise your hands? Oh, I see one hand. This is a very long list of participants, and I'm aware we have other participants joining us over live stream. Maybe if you can write in the chat where you're joining us from, it would be great. Now, I would like to ask, if you are joining us from a local government, can you raise your hand in the chat? In order to do that, okay, quite a few local governments. Now, Philippines is definitely representing today, that's sure, for sure. Yes, good to see all of your faces as well. Okay, now Michelle, question to you. Can you tell us about how many youth volunteers exist in the Asia Pacific as well as globally? I'm sorry to put you on the hot seat. Just out of curiosity, to tell our local government officials joining us about the vast network of change makers in the region and beyond. Are you with me?
Yes, I'm here. So I'm not very good with numbers. We might need Mariko to jump in if I'm wrong, but I know that globally we have around 6 million volunteers, and the Asian Pacific region, very fortunately, is actually one of the youngest regions. So more than half of this amount of volunteers that we have actually come from the Asia Pacific region, and that's why we are a region with so much potential, because there's so much young people here who are just sort of like waiting on the opportunity to actually take action. So please engage with us.
There's really, quite frankly, no reason not to. You gave us a lot of brilliant reasons to engage youth, but really, I mean, urban resilience needs to be multi-generational, and youth are key urban stakeholders here in this space. So thank you so much for joining us. For anyone that has questions for Michelle or how to engage youth, please do write them in the chat. Michelle, once again, wishing you a great rest of the day in Geneva in case you have to hop off. Thanks again.
Thank you very much, Lucy. Thank you, Michelle, for this inspiring talk, and people were really excited and chatting. Thank you. We can rely on youth to beat the heat, to disseminate the messages, to beat the heat. Before going into these communication aspects, let's go a little bit into the health aspect of heat. What the public should know. What are the effects of heat on the human body? What can be done when warming sign arises? What can be done to prevent being into a situation where heat can strike? To look at those aspects, I would like to call Dr. Pascal Casson as well as Salome Boussif. They are both based in Paris for the IFRC Global First Aid Reference Center, and I can see them here. Thank you for joining us, and please, the floor is yours. You have your presentation.
Yes. Hello, Arnaud. Hello, Lucy. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me well?
Yes, we can hear
Perfect.
you. Excellent. So Pascal is sharing the screen. So Well, thank you for inviting us to this well-attended meeting, and thank you for the organization. So my name is Salome, and I'm the First Aid Officer at the IFRC Global First Aid Reference Center, which is a reference center of the Red Cross and Red Crescent National Society. And basically what we do is that we produce guidelines on first aid with scientific and education recommendation, but as well we do some certification process and produce some resources for national society. And in those resources and guidelines, we have included Heatwave consideration. So we are happy to present today with Dr. Pascal Cassan. Maybe you can greet the audience.
Yeah, hi everybody. Very happy to be with you. Of course, my name is Pascal Cassan. I'm an emergency physician in Paris and head of the Global First Aid Reference Center. And as you said, effectively, it's very important for everybody, from the governance to the citizen and member of the community, to know what could be the effects of heat on the body, and especially to know how to distinguish exhaustion and stroke.
Thank you, Pascal. So we will try to be brief there, but we are happy to hear or read about any question that we can address today or later. Let's see how it lasts. But maybe if we can stop sharing, I will kindly ask Mariko, I think, to display our questionnaire on heat exhaustion and heat stroke to test the knowledge of the participants, because we wanted with this presentation to have these insights, so everybody can normally have on the screen appearing a little questionnaire. I hope it's okay. Maybe Arnaud, you can confirm that it's appearing.
Yep, it does work. Perfect.
Yeah.
It's working. Okay, perfect.
Thank you, guys. Excellent. So maybe we can let the presentation then. So first question would be if, according to you, I'm sure most of you are knowledgeable about this data, if globally between 2016, the number of people exposed to heat waves increased by around 3 million, 5 million, 10 million, or 125 million. So I let you answer that one. There is only one single choice. So please do not hesitate to tick. It's totally anonymous, so we won't see any names. And then on the second question, we wanted to pull the audience on the warning sign of heat exhaustion, what we call heat exhaustion here at the Global First Aid Reference Center in our guidelines. So in that one, you can have multiple choices. And then on the third question, you have the heat stroke recognition. So would it be excessive sweating, dry skin, rapid pulse, sign of confusion, high body temperature? So let's focus on recognition first. I let you check. So I don't know if anybody has answered. I can see personally. However, if you have difficulty to answer for whatever reason, you can just type answer in the chat if you like.
Should I try to share my screen? Unfortunately, Mariko, our poll guru, wasn't able to activate it. So I'm the one who activated it. And there are quite a lot of people answering.
Okay.
I can share the screen, I think. Should I try, or can you see the answers?
Yeah.
Okay. Cross your fingers for me, audience. No. Can you see this? It's
can see
my messy computer screen. And the heat wave test?
No, we cannot see it. But if people are answering, that's great. Don't worry, Lucy, with that.
Okay.
Just wanted to focus also on the last two questions on what to do. So what to do in case of heat exhaustion, as the person to vote to get rid of the heat, put the person in a comfortable position, give them water, even if the person is sleeping or unconscious, or cover the person with damp clothes and use a fan. And we have also choices for heat stroke. So we invite kindly the audience to answer, and with Pascal, we will be providing the answer following the presentation. So you need to follow the presentation to have the answer back. But we are happy to have you. Maybe 1 more minute, and then we start. So thank you, Lucy, for reaching on WhatsApp. So I can see that many people answered, basically. Thank you for that. For the first question, the second question, okay. So I show to Pascal.
Good.
Excellent. Thank you. So maybe, Lucy, if you're able to, I don't think you can share the screen, but normally on Zoom you can share the results for everyone without sharing your screen.
All right. So if I end the poll, will that share that? Okay.
And then
perfect.
you have shared the results.
Got it.
Oh, great. Excellent. So
see
that you can see exactly.
Perfect.
We can see it. So we can see that everybody answered, and we have different percentage. But thank you for your participation in that. Okay, great. Okay. So you had multiple choices. Excellent. Feel free to add a note for you if you have any, concern on the question or any further question. And we will be starting with the first one. So Pascal, I think you can still share the screen. Yes, that's great.
Yeah.
And let's focus on the difference.
Yeah, we can focus effectively with the sign. And with that, you will have some answer after this little quiz. We have to distinguish heat exhaustion and heat stroke because it's very important. One is really the sign of appeal, and the second is the emergency. And heat exhaustion, how to recognize an heat exhaustion. It could happen, of course, for old people and also for young people very quickly, but also to sports people, because during effort you can be front and heat exhaustion. How we can recognize the warning sign? First, we have an excessive sweating, and after we have also a cool, pale, clammy skin, and it's very clear that the temperature at this step is normal or a low temperature. And after we can have some sign as headache or fainting. We, of course, as we try to fight against the heat, we have a rapid weak pulse, and we have also some nausea sometimes or muscle cramps. That's really important at this stage to act quickly and to avoid to go to the next step, because the next step is the emergency. The next step is the heat stroke. And everybody has to know what could be the sign of heat stroke, because it's very important for management of events or also for the lay public, because after it will be very late to have some efficient action. First of all, for heat stroke, the warning signs are reddish, hot and dry skin. We last the sweating, and that's very strange. We have a rapid pulse because the circulation wants to fight against the heat, and we have also a possible loss of consciousness, but at this time it's very, very important to act accordingly. Of course, during heat stroke we have a high headache and unusual behavior or sign of confusion, and the temperature is more and more high. So at this step, we need to ask emergency service what we have to do. Perhaps to help immediately by an emergency system on the spot, or perhaps to go directly to the hospital as quick as possible. What to do when we are at these steps? So first of all, during the exhaustion, it's very important to avoid to continue the situation to go to the baddest one, the stroke one. And it's very clear it's very important at this stage of the exhaustion to place the person in a cool environment, perhaps an air conditioned environment, or perhaps just a cool one. And after, also to put the person in a comfortable position to rest and to try to cover the person with a clamp and clothes, and use a fan or a mist to cool the person. It's very clear that we have to try to give a cool bath if we are in the case of child. In case of heat stroke, as I said before, it is really an emergency. We need probably healthcare provider, perhaps a doctor, because at this stage it's a real emergency, and it could be a life-threatening situation. And at this stage, it's necessary to cool very quickly the person, to give some water to the person if the person is perfectly conscious, and of course remove unnecessary clothing, loosen tight clothing. And after, it will be necessary to apply a cold pack or wrap the ice to the person's neck, because it's very important to try to decrease the temperature as soon as possible. And after, and last and not least, after call to the emergency service. So after we have the prevention, because it's very, very important to go to the prevention aspect.
And yes, to finish on the prevention, and this is in relation with a question that has been raised in the Facebook Live on how can we mainstream the heatwave prevention into disaster risk reduction programming, or also urban health programming. So here at the Global First Aid Reference Center, we do encourage national societies, Red Cross and Red Crescent, to have included in their first aid training heatwave prevention, but also management consequences, like Pascal just mentioned, because lay public are not sometimes aware about that. Evidence shows that there is more deaths in heatwave in urban setting than non-urban setting. So that's why it's very important for all the actors that we are here at the Red Cross to include this in the preparation of the citizen to disaster risk reduction. Eventually, we can also have a dedicated training on first aid for that, because here it's just an introduction, but we could have more topic included in terms of consequences, like focus more on dehydration, how to rehydrate, but also seizure or eventually, in the worst case, cardiopulmonary resuscitation. So that's what we are trying to promote also here with some campaign, and we want to go further with other reference centers from the Red Cross and Red Crescent societies, for example, Global Disaster Preparedness Center, on a heat research, and we are looking for volunteer if you are interested. So you are invited to contact us. You will have in the report our contacts. And here are the objectives. So I think we will stop here, and we thank you very much. And thank you, Lucy, for sharing every link that we mentioned, so that people can access this and save it in the bookmarks. We wish you a nice meeting, and we are here for any question you might have on first aid and heatwave management. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Salome. Thank you, Dr. Pascal Casson, for this very clear presentation. Heat exhaustion, heat stroke, we don't always know that. We don't always think about that. Very straightforward presentation. Do we have any question?
Of course, we can share the presentation, of course, and it will be possible to download it on our website, but you can also directly share with all the participants if you wish.
You will receive a package with all the presentation as well as a report for the participant, as well as a report on this webinar. If there is no urgent question that I see in the chat, I think Lucy, oh, we have a hand raised. Krishna, please.
Hello. This is Krishna speaking from Nepal.
Please go ahead.
Can you hear me?
We hear you, Krishna, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much for all nice presentation and very widely comprehensive coverage with everything. But still, I'm wondering whether our team also have information about this mountain climate, because you know Nepal, we are facing a lot of challenges now with these hot waves, and our mountain is gradually, the snow is melting and it is getting dark now. So the consequences will be, you know, again, the lowland, the sea level will be automatically rise. So this is very pertinent for Nepal, how we can shape our mountain, not to melt at the snow, everything. So if some study also happen on that, because my association, this District Coordination Committee Nepal, we already raised the issue about this climate change and its effects. So particularly the mountain snow melting situation. So how we can work together for this, because you know recently this local level election is holding in Nepal and election results is coming up. Maybe by next month, again the new local level government will form. So we have to, if we have resources, to make a curricula to train to these new elected peoples from the very beginning, and next 5 years they will work properly for this area also. So I urge today's team to think about this mountain climate. Thank you.
Thank you, Krishna.
Thank you, Krishna ji.
Pleasure.
I think go ahead, Arno.
No, just a very wide question covering from climate change to mountain climate to politics. So we're really a little bit out from the heat and health aspects we wanted to cover, but indeed, how can we advocate and sensitize for this climate change aspect? I think mobilizing the youth to communicate.
Also with some disturbance is there. So I think this is the issue, but my request is if we can make a plan, you know, right from the very beginning, because the politically awareness is there. But again, we have to bring them in a good track so that they also can use their own resources, and also we can contribute them to put on it. So holistically we can support. Yeah.
Sir, I think this is actually an excellent segue. So I think that, I mean, we're building up, we've spoken about the cascading compounding effects of climate on heat, on health, on well-being, and also each city, each environment is unique. So this is a good segue into the importance of risk communication, right? So I would first like to really thank our IFRC Global First Aid Reference Center colleagues for the informative presentation. There are a slew of excellent resources on heat health, on first aid. I also put a COVID-19 briefing in the chat box as well, as this is still very much relevant, and COVID-19 and heat risk affect many similar vulnerable groups, so do check that out as well. But now, okay, so all of us are more or less equipped to recognize and respond to the symptoms of heat risk. And there's a second important component to this, and so that's how can we best communicate heat health risks? Sir Krishna, you mentioned to different levels of government, but also how can we have messaging that is fit for purpose, that's easy to understand and impactful at the community level, at the household level. You know, what are some of the tools, guidance, and resources available to enable cities, Red Cross, Red Crescent national societies, and youth to craft these impactful risk communication messages to raise awareness and action from the community level upwards? So big drum roll. It's my pleasure to introduce Ramiz Khan, Red Cross Climate Center Urban Advisor, who is going to provide us with top tips, how it's done. Ramiz, are you with us?
Hi, Lucy. Thanks for the lovely introduction, and thanks for having me in this well-participated event. It's quite surprising, the list of participants, and I'm super glad to see the people who have been joining throughout the region, to different part of the region. It is amazing, and all the presentation are super informative and very very enriched, I think. So I will present about the heat risk and communication, like Lucy just introduced, and enhance understanding and awareness. Would you mind, Lucy, to change the slide for me, please?
Over to Mariko.
Oh, Mariko.
The tech hero. Thanks, Mariko.
Thanks, Mariko. So I will start with the definition, what is heat communication? But there is not a, to be very honest, there is not a distinct definition, but basically a critical component of a heat action is communication, like Lucy just introduced. This involves creating public awareness of heat impacts and how to manage them, and providing early warning before a heat wave occurs. Next slide, please. An effective heat communication plan uses a multi-pronged approach and includes various stakeholders and types of information, like you can see in this figure, an outline of the way heat-related information flows from a source of information to the public through various communication channels. For instance, information on the impact of heat on water service provider goes to the city authority first, and from there, through different intermediaries such as local media channels, NGO, social worker, reach out to the community. So that is why we mentioned that effective heat communication plan uses a multi-pronged approach and includes various stakeholders and different types of informations. Next slide, please. Here is a list of potential actors that provides different types of information. I'm not going through one by one. For example, the National Meteorological Service or International Meteorological Service or private weather providers, the type of information they generally provide is meteorological information like daily forecast, weekly forecast, seasonal forecast, extreme weather forecast, alerts, early warning. Same like other health department or medical expert, they also provide some relevant information. That is how the information, different type of information flows. Just this is a glimpse to familiar with you, like different type of actors, and what different type of information generally they provide. Next slide, please. So now coming to the code, when design a multi-pronged communication plan, consider the 4 key elements of communication, which are access, relevance, understanding, and use. Access is basically how will the public access the information. Relevance is the information provided relevant to the needs of the population groups targeted. Understanding is the information clearly understandable by all targeted population group. And use, can the public take action based on the information provided. But here is to be noted that for each of the above consider different needs of different communities. The information and advice given to some vulnerable groups may need to be different from the information and advice given to others. Some communities will require more intensive and continuous communication than others, or some channel of communication may even reach certain section of population more effectively than others. Probably some people more familiar with the newspaper, some people are more familiar with the TV news. So these are the factors we have to keep in consideration when we are designing a multiple communication approach. Next slide, please. Now I'm starting with the access. What are the different action that needs to be taken? Like, this is a suggestion, basically. It is not like casting the iron, this is the action that you have to take in, but these are some of the proposed action or suggestion that you can take to make the public access the information. Identify the most vulnerable population and potential caregiver groups. Engage with them to determine the information needs, such as preferred format, channels, etc., of each type of vulnerable group. Second, engage with targeted communities to identify the most effective channels for communicating information to them rapidly and in a way they can understand very easily. Access the channels through which these population groups currently access heat information, like that needs to be assessed first, that needs to be known, and or general weather related information, and identify what has worked well and what has not worked well. That is something we need to understand first. Select and leverage communication channels that have already proved successful in reaching out to the communities to be targeted, and identify any barriers to using them effectively, like if they have any barrier to using them effectively. Identify and enlist appropriate intermediary actors who can communicate heat information within communities in an effective and timely manner. It can be a social worker, it can be a Red Cross volunteer, or it can be a social media, or it can be even the TV media. So that we need to identify. Select a combination of channels and intermediaries that will serve all vulnerable communities effectively, but limit the number of overall channels to what is manageable by the city authority. So we have to also assess what city authority can, it can be city authority, but or it can be district branch of the Red Cross Red Crescent branches or the headquarters. So we need to first assess our what is manageable, and based on that we identify the combination of channel intermediaries to provide the information. So that is how we can manage the access. Second slide, next slide please. Now the relevance is very important. Relevance is, so the key steps are: engage with National Meteorological Service of your country or your preferred weather information provider to develop a localized heat forecast. It is beneficial to include local communities and other relevant stakeholders in this process to ensure that forecasting service is user-centric and inclusive. So yeah, so generally in most of the cases, National Meteorological Service who provide the forecast data. Use heat. It is the second point is very important to gauge more visibility and engage more people and build ownership, is that use heat and vulnerability maps are very important, and other information sources such as health data to identify the context, for example, spatial, financial, social, technological. These are the context and most vulnerable populations. So you have to identify the context and the vulnerable population. So for example, the urban, so for example, one group of the people coming from low income population group, and they are the vulnerable. So we have to relate the context and the vulnerability, why they are vulnerable. This can be done through collaborating with the community intermediaries, of course, and the Red Cross, the community leaders, or the National Society volunteers. They can take a pivotal role for this. Here, one point needs to be mentioned, that the health data, there is a dearth of health data, because in many countries, especially while we are working with in Nepal, we realize that the health data is not well registered in the small or secondary towns. In big cities it is, yes, but in secondary towns it is not. Especially, it is not clear whether the morbidity or mortality is due to the heat, due to heat related illness or something else. So this we need to streamline, we need to fix it, we need to see how we can make this health data management more streamlined. The second point, the next and last action in the relevance is develop advice messages that are specific to each context. This enables the public to take relevant practical measures that are within their means. Next slide, please. Now the understanding, how they will understand the messages. So translate and develop heat forecast or other relevant information into local language of the population. So generally, for example, I'm based in India at the moment. So in India is Indian Meteorological Department who publish the forecast data, and generally it is in English. But in India, there are like 21 national languages, official language. Sorry, there are 21 official languages, and many people, like most of the people, don't understand English. So, and also the language, kind of the way you are translating it's also. So, for example, in one part of India, we speak Bengali, and in Bangladesh they speak Bengali too. But the way the language is spoken, it's different, you know. So that is why it is very important to translate and develop heat forecast and other relevant information in local language of the population that the people can understand. Simplify the terminology. It's very important. Like if I use the heat index, wet bulb temperature, all this jargon, then it is very difficult for common people. So use simpler and familiar words. If some technical jargon cannot be replaced, then provide an explanation. What is that? What is heat index? What is wet bulb temperature? What do you mean by that? Use a variety of channels and formats to communicate heat information to make it inclusive and accessible to all sectors of the city's population. So as I said, like some people prefer newspapers, some people prefer TV media, some people prefer social media. So that is why we need to make a combination of different channels. Ensure that messaging is consistent with the cultural practices, lifestyle, and behavior of the local communities. So here the point when Debbie was presenting, someone I think raised this question that indigenous knowledge for cooling and combating heat risk. Here this point comes, like messaging when we are preparing the message it has to be consistent with it has to be customized with the local cultural practices and lifestyle so that people can relate, people can understand, and people can follow it. So that is a very important point. Next point is provide impact descriptions along with heat focus to help the public understand how the heat may affect them, enabling people to take appropriate actions. All impact descriptions should be relevant to the local context. It is, as you know, most of the cases we provide the focus data, but impacts are mentioned. So for example, the temperature, so in an earlier presentation from Nepalgan, Zolakji mentioned that temperature raised to 42 degrees centigrade yesterday in Nepalgan. But what does it mean? How it can impact the local community, their businesses or livelihood or health? So that needs to be clearly defined. We need to co-develop this impact description with all the stakeholders more inclusively. We have to involve different community leaders, members, representative, women, gender representation. So it has to be well balanced, and it has to be a co-production process. The impact descriptions, because we have to also know what people understand, the residents understand, or residents looking forward. Set up an inquiry mechanism around heat alerts, such as a multi-stakeholder press briefing, an online inquiry from submission to give the media and community intermediaries the opportunity to seek clarification and gain a deeper understanding of impacts of the upcoming extreme heat event. So it can be done by the city authority, if city authority has the capacity, or any disaster risk management department of the city, or the National Society of Red Cross. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Now is the use. So how you will use those messages? Prepare a list of action that the public can take to reduce the adverse impact of extreme heat. Consolidate the key details of the heat mitigation intervention, including a description of the intervention, who is providing the intervention, who is it targeted at, how it can be accessed by the targeted groups, when the intervention should begin and end, contact details, etc. And accordingly prepare an IC material with this information to share with the public. We have developed some IC materials. I'll show in my next slide, in my following slides, that you can also use, and it's also available publicly. Create a timeline of communication activities aligned with the heat action plan activities. So if we're planning that, like in Nepalganj, they are planning to do this heat action from May to July. So you also prepare a timeline that when the communication needs to be started along with the heat action planning. Heat action planning means probably distributing water or making people aware. So the communication has to go simultaneously. For effective communication, that is, public is able to take action is in a timely manner and is successfully able to avoid or reduce heat impacts. The seasonal awareness outreach, it should begin generally before the start of the season. So if we're planning to start the heat action June, July, for example, so we would suggest that the communication has to start from May itself and continue until end of July, or until the season's end. It is a bit co-produce the awareness message and alert messages with key stakeholders, such as these are very critical stakeholder, like public health agencies or health agency, the media channel, they take a pivotal role, the community organization, etc. The content of alert message should focus on the following type of information, like weather forecast, areas which will be most affected, potential impacts, advice on actions to take, and who to contact for further help and information in municipality or in the Red Cross branches. Also create a long and short version of an alert messages to be used according to the limitation of various communication channels. For example, if you are sending a message in a TV, a breaking news, so you cannot give a three-liner breaking news kind of, heads up kind of. So a small message would be good. Or if you are sending communicating through a text message, then I mean, a small message would be good so people can understand. But if you're sending a WhatsApp viral message or a Facebook post, then probably you can elaborate the message a bit more. So that is why we need to have two versions of the alert message based on like which communication channel that we'll be using, and keep the message consistent across the channel. That is very important. We should not be inconsistent on that. Gather feedback. It is very important after each of the heat wave. Gather feedback from public on the effectiveness of heat communication, and the feedback survey can be implemented in collaboration with the community intermediaries, again using digital platform or in-person survey. The resulting information should be used to improve the communication plan for the next extreme heat event or the next heat season. So it's a iterative process. So every year you should do that and understand the lesson learning and accordingly improve the next year, because things would be improved and the media is also improving and the communication modes are also changing. So we need to be also up to date like that way. So these are some of the components or some of the way you can develop an effective communication, heat communication or risk communication plan or mechanism. So now, next slide, please. Now I'll showcase you some of the case studies, what heat communication actions people are taking around the world, just some of the glimpses, which are the National Society are doing what. I will not take more time, like 2-3 slides. I'll just show like the Australian Red Cross. Here is the example from Australian Red Cross. Australian Red Cross has set up a telecross ready service in which vulnerable and isolated people are called daily during a heat wave to ensure they have a way to cool off and are drinking enough water, and to answer if they have any question they may have. Next slide, please. It's a example from Netherlands Red Cross. They has led a variety of activity, including door-to-door visits with older people to provide wellness checks and share key messages on staying safe during heat wave. It's not only Netherlands Red Cross. I think Hong Kong Red Cross has also done similar kind of stuff. So there are many other Red Cross also doing this, adapting this door-to-door visit for the elderly people especially. Next one, please. This is an example for Indian Red Cross volunteers. They led a flash mob in Delhi to raise awareness of heat risk and what people can do about them. This is one of the communication medium that they implemented. Next slide, please. Yeah, so now some of the tools that we have developed, I will share with you in the chat box the link where you can get all the tools. It is there on the Prepared Center website. Here it goes. You can find all of them. So we have developed a set of campaign materials. It is 13 set of posters and social media posts. These are developed in 3 languages, in English in general, in Bengali and in Nepali. And also these posters and the social media posts, they have been developed, customized to the local context. For example, we have developed these materials for South Asia region, for Southeast Asia region, for Sub-Saharan Africa region. So you can use it in different region, and it's customized to different region, to their culture basically. So that is why it is readily available, publicly available. Can you go look next slide, please? Yeah, so these are some of the materials, some of the glimpses. I have already shared you the link. You can download all the materials from there. Next slide, please. Yes, so some of the example, that's it. Next slide, please. Yeah, so we have also developed some educational video. It's a whiteboard animation educational video. There is the link. You can find all of them, but I have also shared the link in the chat box. So, for example, in my colleague from First Aid Center, they just mentioned what are the signs of heat illness and provide heat first aid. So we already developed some some videos on that. There are, I think, 6 to 7 educational videos that you can have a look. And these videos are again in English, in Nepali, and in Bengali. So you can go through it. It is there on the website. You can just go through it, and I hope it will enrich your knowledge, and it will give you a clear idea like what to do and what are the actions to be taken, why it is a serious issue, what we should do with the children, how we need to take care of the elderly people, why the cities are important. So these are the information that you can get through a video, whiteboard assistant video, very well made videos actually. And I hope it will make your concept clear. And you can also use them for your capacity building or awareness raising program if you do with your team or with the community or any other member. Yeah, next slide please. Yeah, so I think that much. If you have any question, you can reach out to me, or you can always reach out to Lucy, and Lucy can send your message to me, or the materials link are already there, so you can just download it if you want. And we have also developed a communication plan, communication plan, but it is specifically for South Asian cities. But if you need it, we can also share the link. It is a link is already shared, so you can also download it and you can use that also as well. Thank you very much for your time. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Ramiz. Do you have any question?
There is a question in the chat from Jose Tafala. So this is for those communities living in remote, hard to reach areas. What, Ramiz, would be the ideal risk communication to be utilized, and how would you assess its effectiveness?
Yeah, so we need to understand the context first, like the geographical position, like if it's a hilly station or they have access to media or electricity. Like in various parts of the South Asia, they do not have even access to electricity. Like in India, I know there's remote places in the hill station, they don't have electricity access. So we have to understand the context first, and accordingly we have to choose which is the best suitable. In the most remote case where there is no access to electricity, there is no access of like newspaper or anything, so the best possible intermediaries would be like household visit. Like the volunteer can visit them, they can talk to them, they can share some pamphlets and educate them, and then probably time to time, probably after a certain interval, you can go visit them again and check whether it was effective or not. So it is largely depends upon the context. Like when you say remote, but in which scale of remoteness, based on that and the accessibility. So that is why if I started the communication plan, the first important point is the access. Like you have to assess the accessibility, then relevance, and then understanding the relevance, then use. So yeah, we need to assess first the accessibility, then accordingly we can identify the relevance and the intermediaries and how to use it. Thanks.
Thank you, Ramiz. Thank you very much for this presentation on communication campaign. And before you turn off your Zoom, before you go and start your own communication campaign, we have one last presentation, which actually can be very helpful because Ramiz already started presenting this. We have a lot of resources out there. A lot of things are already available. So don't rush before having a look at all those resources. And our colleague, thank you, Ramiz, again. And our colleague now, Aynur Kadiasanoglu from the Global Disaster Preparedness Center, will present us some of the resources that are available and can already feed your soul and feed your thinking to have an efficient communication campaign. Aynur, thank you for joining us. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Arno. Thank you, Lucy. Thanks everyone for joining. This is so encouraging, seeing so many participation from different organizations, different levels of working. This is really, really amazing. So, and I assume or hope that you are really inspired. You learned a lot from, I learned a lot from this 2-hour series of presentations. So we kind of thought that it would be nice to end this today with an interactive session, and maybe it will be also a little bit recapping what we heard, what remained in our heads right now. And I also hope that, like Arno said, you are keen and cannot wait to go and start planning, start action. But I thought maybe you are also asking yourself, okay, this is really interesting and I want to do something, but where to find all these? It could be sometimes confusing. So I would like to share my screen, but I will also first explain what we are going to do in the next 20 minutes or so. So I will ask some questions before directing you to the some tools and guidance materials, but I will ask you kindly, please put your answers in the chat. I have seen that the audience is pretty active, pretty much contributing, so I hope it will continue. There is no right or wrong answers. We just would like to hear from you. So please feel free to put whatever comes to your mind in response to the questions that I'm going to pose in the chat. All right, so I'm going to now share my screen and start the short presentation that I have. All right. Okay. So first question, hypothetically, a major heat waves is anticipated in your town, and let's assume that you are the mayor. What is the first thing you should be doing prior to the heat wave? What is the first thing that comes to your mind, and what should you be doing? Alternatively, you are, again, a major heat waves is anticipated in your town, and you're the manager of a Red Cross Red Crescent branch in the most dense part of that town, or a small town also. Again, what is the first thing you should be doing? What comes to your mind? I already see great answers coming. Very good. Just feel free to put, what would you be doing? Just imagine you are a mayor or you are a manager of a branch. Really great. It's just the answers are ranging from knowledge to immediate action, getting the convening meetings, inform the constituent. This is really great. Okay, maybe 5 more seconds. Thanks for really great ideas. Again, there's no right or wrong. These are all very good answers. Your answers points out, preparing for heat wave is not very different than preparing for other disasters, other emergencies. It starts with the knowledge, understanding better, and I hope that today's session will serve towards that aim. And you should be prepared to respond. Then comes the learning that these are the steps that applies to many emergencies actually. Great. So from there, just keep going, yeah. From there, I would like to maybe talk about 2 specific tools that we have developed as Red Cross Red Crescent movement with our partners. One is Heatwave Guide for Cities, and the other one is slightly modified version specifically for Red Cross Red Crescent branches. And I believe Arno would be putting the links to these resources in the chat box. Actually, Ram is already also directed you there. So let's just look at what these tools are talking about. as you heard from our excellent speakers today, it really starts with understanding the risk. And luckily, we are getting better. There are more and more research towards that end, because we learned that heat risk varies quite a lot from people to people, from where it's completely contextual, cultural, and really differs. So understanding that for your city is really important. And this guide will help you step by step how you can do it, what can you do. And it also talks about preparing your city for the heat season, for the maybe immediate heat wave, and how to set up health early warning systems, maybe mainstream these streams, or integrate these early warning system in the existing early warning systems that you might have. It also has some information about how to respond during the heat wave, what to do, but more importantly, after the heat wave, because learning is everything. We just heard over and over again that it's not a one-time event, it's getting more and more frequent. So it is definitely going to happen again. In that sense, learning is extremely important, capturing what happened during that last heat wave. There were some references also to cities, how cities are built. I cannot stress that importance of that aspect, actually, because how the cities are built, what kind of materials are used, what is the density, what is the level of green areas in that city, the cooling areas, the shaded areas, with the level of traffic, everything affects the impact of heat waves. I remember the researchers mentioned the air pollution, which is very closely related to, again, how the cities are planned and built. So mainstreaming heat risk into urban planning is extremely important. So you will find some information about how to do that, where to pay attention. We, as Red Cross Red Crescent Network and Climate Center and Global Disaster Preparedness Center, we are planning to actually go into deep dive into this part and work with urban planners in the coming years and really make our cities ready for heat waves, help them rather. Okay, I hope this has been useful. So I'm moving to the second question, if you're ready. Okay, this is again mentioned by the previous presenters, that during heat wave, you can't do it alone. Basically, you can't do anything alone by yourself in a city. You have to work with others. But how do you make sure next time the response is well coordinated? Let's just assume that you just gone through a heat wave and you realize that you should have reached out to others. And what would you do for the next time so that the response is much better coordinated? Please, again, put your thoughts, your feedback in the chat. Yes, coordination is really, really important. Collaboration is everything. Interesting inputs are coming. Very good. Please, everyone, feel free to put what comes to your mind. So I see a lot of coordination and reaching out to others, which is obviously really, really important. But do you know, are there any resources that will help you to do that better? If you know, if you're aware of any tools, please put that also. Absolutely, community-based involvement is great. All the city councils, different government agencies, they're all relevant. Maybe I can move on and show you a tool that is already available. Again, you'll find the links in the chat. This is a toolkit for building coalitions for resilience. This is a toolkit we developed. It's generally for building community resilience in cities and how to work with stakeholders, how to reach out to stakeholders, how to build coalitions, in the meaning that the coalitions let you reach out, bring together many different partners, but also through this, with this toolkit, you could work with these coalition members and agree on a vision, a long-term vision for your city. What is the vision for your city, for community resilience vision for your city? Once you reach to that kind of vision, and the next step is usually to start thinking about priority actions, priorities, which could be heat. And we applied this toolkit in many cities, and really some of the cities identified the extreme heat as the top priority for all the coalition members. And once you reach to that point, then all the coalition members could work towards that aim. It doesn't require coalition members to do things differently. You can still do what you do, but everything contributes to this common aim. So that way you could reach to a city level impact, a meaningful impact, and a much bigger impact than you could have done by yourself. Another lesson we learned by applying this toolkit is that as Red Cross Red Crescent representing the communities and as a neutral body, we call it this coalition with the local government. That's where we got the best results. And work with many different stakeholders. You will, I just want to point you to what you will find in that toolkit that will walk you through why coalition, what are the benefits of it, and how do you do stakeholder mapping, how do you manage these coalitions and keep them working? Because in some of the cities we work, even after the project ended, we now see that the coalitions continue because it doesn't require extra resources. It just basically bringing together stakeholders for a common shared aim, common shared vision. So I hope that you will find this toolkit useful. For that will help you to do all the things that you are putting in the chat. So the next question is, actually our Global First Aid Center colleagues really walk us through this question. So this will be a little bit like seeing what you remember from that presentation. What comes to your mind first as the most common effects of heat waves on people's health? Can you put it in the chat? What do you remember from the presentation we just had? Yeah. Exactly. Very good. Yeah, we learned that it can be really severe, and sometimes people don't even recognize the health impact of heat. So I would just like to again show you that Global First Aid Reference Center has excellent information about hyperthermia, dehydration, and how to respond in an emergency situation. This is more in the first aid realm, not the preparing or anything, but this is like when you see someone, now we learn what are the symptoms, what can you do? And please also get in touch with your local Red Cross Red Crescent branches who are giving excellent first aid trainings all over the world. Okay, I don't know how we are doing with the time. I hope we are okay. So I will move to another question. So now heat wave is past, and you realize that you need to know more about heat waves, their impacts, how to prepare for. Do you know where to get that information in a collected way? Where would you go if you need to access that information? It could be a website, it could be an agency that you have in mind in your local context. What comes to your mind first? Where would you go? Red Cross. Nice. WHO and Red Cross, very good. Okay, of course, you can always Google, we know that, right? We all do that. But maybe I can give you a little bit short cut here. Ramiz already mentioned that we have a microsite within preparecenter.org, a heat toolkit, where you can find quite a lot of information, and I'll walk through you like what you can find. It's preparecenter.org. And if you go to heat toolkit in that website, you will find quite a lot of guidance material, how to prepare, how to respond. You will find campaign material. Some of them Ramiz already pointed out. You'll see case studies in different parts of the world, what people are doing, what organizations, what cities are doing. You'll find policy briefs, different research and reports. It's linked to Global Health and Heat Information Network, which has quite a lot of very rich resources as well. You'll find links to that. There's also some other interesting information you could find, which is heat and COVID checklist. We are going through a major pandemic, and we had heat waves during that pandemic, as you all know. So we worked on how to respond to heat during a pandemic. You could and how to also recognize the different symptoms and how to respond. You will find that. You will find links to first aid for heat and heat planning, COVID heat planning checklist. So I will really encourage you to visit this page and see the resources yourself. Many of them are in multiple languages. I cannot promise all of them, but we are trying to make more and more resources in multiple languages. Meteorological centers, yes, I see different organizations are mentioned. Very good. So hopefully this will be a one-stop shop for you as well. And the other important thing is that you can also contribute to these resources. It's open. Once you registered preparecenter.org, you can post your own videos, you can post your own resources. So I will also invite you to see what you can contribute to this knowledge pool. Okay, moving to the next one. One last question is, we have a heat action day planned this year. Does any one of you know when will that day be? IFRC Red Cross Red Crescent Heat Action Day. Do you know? Have you heard about it? Do you know which day it is? I'm really curious if anyone heard about it. If not, that would be a good way to maybe spread the word. Yes, great. Someone got the right answer. On the 14th of June this year, we will have a heat action day. So what we will do is our nation societies with our volunteers, especially youth volunteers, will organize flash mobs at the same time to raise awareness. If you're wondering what flash mob is and how you can participate, I'm not going to go through all of the steps for the sake of the time, but Arnold already put the link there. You will find all the information you need, the videos, how to organize the flash mob, everything in that website, which is a Heat Action Day IFRC website. And I really hope that you will all join us on 14th of June. We will be repeating this day every year, hopefully, and try to make it a globally recognized day. We also are thinking of making it different dates for the Southern and Northern Hemisphere. But for this year, this is the first time, it will be for the Northern Hemisphere, and it will be on the 14th of June, 2022. With that, I'm finishing my session. Thank you so much for your contributions. Excellent ideas. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ainur. And participants, we have now come to the end of our regional Making Cities Heat Resilient meeting. Please give Ainur a big hand and give yourselves a big hand for joining us. This has been an incredibly fruitful meeting, and I hope that you've learned as much as I've learned. Ainur, you've really set a clear course for action, and I hope everybody today will participate, is ready to participate in Heat Action Day, June 14th and beyond. And you certainly have a wide range of rich, comprehensive, practical resources to support your urban heat action. So as you know, resilience is an ever-evolving process, whether you're a stage A, B, or C city, whether you're a Red Cross branch, Red Cross youth chapter that's just starting your heat actions. We are really here as a network. That's been the point of this meeting today as well, to just remind each other. As Ainur and many have pointed out, no one of us can go it alone, right? So we're really here as a network to make cities resilient, and we count on your collaboration, and we are here for you to call upon us as well to support and advance heat action and urban resilience in your cities and towns. So for everyone who joined us, once again, warm thank you for your participation. You've been an incredible audience. Thank you as well for those who joined us on Facebook live stream, and tremendous thanks to the excellent panelists today. Big, big thanks. Please give them an applause. We promise to disseminate this recording as well as all of the presentations and all of the resources and tools shared with you today to all those that have registered. In addition, you can always find the resources as well through the Making Cities Resilient dashboard, as well as the excellent website dedicated to all of the resources on the Prepare Center. So Arnaud, are you also with me?
I'm here, yeah. Thank you very much. It was very, very exciting day. Huge audience. I'm quite sorry because we were expecting less people. So some of you were on Facebook. I hope you could have an enjoyable experience. And next time we'll frame our Zoom to get more people. Thank you for joining us. It was a very, very nice afternoon.
Can we, I think, and Mariko, are you still with us? Thank you so much for all of the support. And maybe we can just get a quick group photo of all of us saying, beat the heat. And perhaps Mariko, you can help support us with that as well. We need to do this and to see everyone, so you're not just seeing my face. We need to have you all unmute yourselves. And on the count of 3, we all have to say, beat the heat together. You have to also show your video. Are you ready? Everybody ready? I'm having trouble seeing everybody, but Mariko, can you see everyone? Okay. 1, 2, 3. Everybody, beat the heat.
Beat the heat. Beat the heat. Beat the heat. Beat the heat. Beat the heat. Beat the heat.
Excellent, excellent. All right. So let's check in soon. Looking forward to Heat Action Day. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Bye. Take care.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Salamat kita. Thank you, Kid. Maraming salamat.
Oh, sarap na.
Salamat da. Bye-bye.
Beat the heat lagi.
Just I want to say something.
Beat the heat, guys.
Beat the heat. See you, Sajad.
Bye bye, Lucy. Thank you.